This video is only possible thanks to viewers like you. To support the channel and get more, go to patreon.com/optimisticduelist and subscribe. Link in the description. I'm an old hat Homestuck. I went into Hiveswap expecting lore on old Homestuck characters and to learn more about the wider universe that I love. In my excitement for that stuff, I somehow never considered the possibility that Joey Claire and her new friends would be the things that really caused me to fall in love. More the fool I am, I should have seen it coming. Homestuck has always been at its strongest when it explores the complex lives of its cast, creating some of fiction's richest and most layered characters, and Hiveswap is no different. Though in some ways, it's better, snappier, more accessible, certainly easier for a wider market to enjoy, and a lot of that is down to Joey Claire, Hiveswap's magnificent protagonist. Among an already standout cast, it can't be denied that for many of us, Joey stole the show. Which is good, because she'd like it that way. So without further ado, let's get to know what I dearly hope will become one of literature's biggest darling stars. Joey Claire is a 14-year-old girl who lives alone with her little brother Jude Harley and their often absent alcoholic babysitter in the town of Hauntswitch. At the beginning of Hiveswap, Joey and Jude are beset by mysterious monsters that seem linked to the neighborhood cult Jude has spent years obsessed with. Even in this life and death situation, as usual, the kids have to fend for themselves. Joey introduces herself as a semi-orphan, as she feels abandoned by her billionaire CEO father, who spent less and less time in the household ever since the tragic early death of Joey's mother, a famous dancer known to us as A. Claire. Not only is Joey not over her mother's death, she's also deeply lonely. Her babysitter is often drunk or working, her brother is younger than her and too caught up in his conspiracies to really pay her much interest, and the kids at school are mean, making fun of her for liking video games. To top it all off, on the rare occasions her father does visit, he barely pays attention to her, stopping by only long enough to fill the house with the bizarre fruits of his adventures, including the taxidermied animals he calls his hunting trophies, which Joey, who draws one of the few consolations in her life from her love of animals and pets, deeply detests. Out of anger and resentment for the old man, Joey has forsaken her father's surname in favor of her beloved late mom's. Maybe my favorite thing about Hiveswap is how Joey spends the whole thing relentlessly trash-talking her awful dad. She's ruthless, I love it, and at no point does the narrative ever stop her in her tracks or suggest she's being unreasonable for her slighted, complicated, dramatic feelings, even when they're vicious. As far as the story's concerned, Pa earned them. Earnest and thoughtful explorations of the effects of abuse and mistreatment are fairly rare in games media, and even more rare are explorations of neglect, which, while just as harmful, especially for young kids, can seem like an almost invisible kind of violence by comparison. Hiveswap makes this violence hypervisible by contrasting it against Joey's deep personal affinity for the aspect of light. Light is one of the 12 primordial elements of paradox space, the aspects that define the multiverse not just through physics, but through thought. This means any concept that can be linguistically, symbolically, historically, or philosophically tied into light falls under the domain of light's influence. For example, sources of energy and power, like the sun, batteries, mysterious green energy sources, and electricity, as well as the increased agency and power that such energy provides. The history of human progress has by and large been the story of our ever-increasing mastery over electricity, and our ability to use that power to grow ever more connected and intertwined with each other, so that we can better pool humanity's collective knowledge, making the most useful, accurate, and important ideas the most accessible, and making every individual human more effective and powerful as a result. And so we find light, not just coming out of the phone and computer screens that tether us to each other and the world around us, but in the innate human power that gave rise to those screens, and every human innovation and technology that came before them. The human imagination itself. Joey's own powerful imagination often draws her to sources of light, like the video games that take her to imaginary worlds, and the light bright she uses to make all sorts of ideas she finds important to her manifest in reality. But the very nature that allows her relief through the imagination also heightens her suffering, because another way to understand the Lightbound is through a craving for the spotlight. To varying degrees, every light player in Homestuck is a bit of a show-off. They're performative and attention-seeking, as driven by the need to see and understand as they are by the need to be seen and understood. In Joey, this manifests as a passionate desire to follow in her mother's footsteps and become a star. A wish that runs so deep she literally wears it on her shirt. Joey gives a lot of thought to how she might look through the eyes of others. She fantasizes about her future memoirs and puts hard work into her routines even though she's got nobody to practice with. And this deep longing for attention is what puts into perspective just how painful Pa's lack of care must have been for her. The Homestuck Extended Zodiac describes people as being bound to their aspects, a reference to Earthbound, a game about children banding together to save the world through their psychic powers and unique talents, known in Japan as Mother 2. The relationship between the bound and their aspects, then, can be understood in one of two ways. Just as Earthbound's heroes are stuck on the Earth, we could say that Joey's nature is to be stuck in light, or trapped by it. A girl with such high aspirations for the stage and stardom, who has, by the cruel circumstances of life, been condemned to the shadow of obscurity. But we can also read the title Earthbound as headed towards the Earth, or on a journey to the Earth, because light relates not only to the pain of Joey's life and the relief she finds from it, but also to the destination she seems to be headed towards. For starters, she's certainly headed towards the discovery of a deep inner truth. All the light players introduced in Homestuck have been girls with deep relationships with and passions for other girls, and though she's not yet aware of it, fairly normal for a 14-year-old living in the 90s, Joey seems to be living up to the pattern, with her confused affections for Pa's blue lady lamps, Samus's strong legs, and badly censored, obviously LGBT magical girl shows, a clear reference to shows like Sailor Moon.
Leave it to me, cuz.
Joey certainly seems headed towards a new truth about her feelings for women, especially now that she must survive in Alternia's pansexual society. And of course, there's the fact that despite her frustration, pain, and sorrow, Joey knows she's not at fault, and it's this internal clarity that lets her shine a light on Xefros' confused idea of how others should treat him. In other words, she's able to make Xefros feel worthwhile and useful himself, able to make him feel important. In effect, she's able to make light bloom in Xefros' heart. Create it where previously there was none, and in so doing, heal his damaged sense of self. Healing, creation, and improvement all seem to be hallmarks of the Maid class, which Joey explicitly references while she's in Dammek's house, and whose key verb seems to be make, so we can understand its verbiage as one who makes light, or makes through light, for their own benefit. And Joey does this every step of the way during her adventure. She makes light with her flashlight, restores the light to her blacked out home, turns on the deer's eyes to cast the light that will lead her to the attic, and all of Joey's strife battles involve her either making light to make herself more important and noticeable, and forcing her enemies to pay attention to her as a result, or making her enemies pay attention to something else, thus distracting them from her when she'd rather not be noticed. The Zodiac describes the Lightbound as students, and Joey refuses to even try to heal Dammek's deer cat Lucis before she's able to educate herself using his Lucis Care manual book. And at the end of Act 1, Xefros and Joey head off to meet the biggest fan of the Grubbles, the band Xefros started with Dammek. Knowing the Sheriff portal is likely a sort of wish-granting device, and that Xefros still has his microphone, it seems likely Joey's dreams of the spotlight will be coming true as well. but likely at a cost. Because there's a nefarious influence guiding Xefros and Joey together, the man who rules over Alternia from the shadows. Lord English's dedicated, cue-ball-headed butler, and the omniscient, omnipotent mastermind who made trolls as violent and cruel as they are. Doc Scratch. Scratch has only barely involved himself directly in the events of Hiveswap so far, but that's exactly how he likes to operate. Scratch's omniscience allows him to be aware of effectively everything relevant to the rule of his master. Scratch doesn't involve himself in anything unless it's relevant to the goals of his master, so the fact that he's helped Xefros and Joey communicate should have us very worried for both of them. But maybe for Joey in particular, since Scratch enjoys carrying out his agenda by manipulating young girls, and in particular light players. In fact, the green star on Joey's shirt seems to echo the green sun that Doc Scratch will later manipulate another light player into creating, which serves as a symbol of Lord English's dominion over the reality of Homestuck. If he's planning to make a more metaphorical kind of star out of Joey too, then that would be foreshadowed by the 1878 Edgar Degas painting Joey keeps in her bedroom, depicting a dancing ballerina being watched by a mysterious suited figure with his head obscured, fittingly titled The Star. So if Joey performs, it's a solid guess that Scratch will be watching. Still, while I'm worried for her, I believe in Joey, and I'm excited to see her get to enjoy her time in the limelight, however long it turns out to last. She's been waiting long enough after all. This video exists thanks to the support of my wise cohort of patrons. If you'd like to summon more videos like this onto your screen, then you can join them. Also make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another video. That's all for now. Until next time, keep rising.